The Fury of Firestorm number 4, written by Ethan Van Sciver and Gail Simone, art by Yildre Sinar. Left off last issue with Firestorm taking out the super boss known as Helix, and director Zither being real upset with him about that. This issue picks up in Karak, fictional country. A plane is landing, and a Tony Stark-esque type man comes out named Al-Farishta. Basically comes out and is like, hey, everyone, I bring you power that can rewrite the globe. Guns suck. Guns are the worst, because guns can only kill like a few people at a time. I bring something that can crush the will of men. Behold. And he shows this guy who they're dangling upside down from like a nuclear drop test tower. And he's screaming out in prayers for Chem Adam, which will probably come back later. And he's literally on fire. And they just straight up drop him and say like, oh yeah, no, he's an orphan, his family's going to die. Like, don't worry about him, he's not important. But he's a good weapon, because watch this. And as they drop him, he turns into a nuclear explosion. And everybody is wearing goggles except for one dude who's staring through binoculars, like trying to get a better look at it. And they're all like, whoa. And then Al-Farishta turns around and looks at the binocular guy who has holes just going through his head now. It's like, that's why we told you guys to wear goggles. So anyway, bidding starts at $1 billion. And of course he gets straight up $1 billion for this weapon to be given to the Karaki freedom fighters, I guess you want to call them. Anyway, cut back over to the main story. Tanya, she's got a head injury because of the fight with Helix. Ronnie and Jason come over and they're like, okay, yeah, she needs a hospital, but we also need to take care of the government stooges. So we're just going to split up. Jason is going to go to the hospital with Tanya, and Ronnie's going to go fight whoever's coming after their families and whatnot. So they have a nearby headset that's communicating to whoever, Zither, I guess, and they managed to pick up on that. They're like, oh, I recognize something. I know where to go. So they all go off their different ways. Cut back to the Al-Farishta thing. After they make the deal, they're back on their plane, flying back home, and there's something just in the way, something blocking them. And it is a man named Pozar who has all the powers of Firestorm, and he blows up the plane. And he goes in and he grabs Al-Farishta, and he's like, you stole the Firestorm protocols and you used them for your own work. Who else has this knowledge? And he's like, dude, I operated on myself. And then Al-Farishta turns into a Firestorm. And he's like, oh, it's because I have the courage to possess, blah, blah, blah. Point being, Pozar apparently was Professor Mikhail Arkadin, who was one of the professors who invented the protocols with Martin Stein, and he's pissed that this guy has it. So he stabs him through the chest with a giant sickle that he forms out of, like, nothing. By the way, he's Russian, want to make that clear. And as such, it causes him to have, like, a nuclear meltdown. He explodes, and Pozar's so happy about that. Cut back to Ronnie. And he's like, I know Jason thinks I'm an idiot, but I was able to pick up like a train sound on one of the communicator devices. And there's only one place that's a low rundown like motel place that people hide out in that's also near train tracks. So putting two together. And then he realizes that it was an ambush. And he's like, all right, maybe I'm not that smart. But as he goes out and he's ready to start taking out whoever's shooting at him, a chopper comes in from behind and just starts shooting not only at Ronnie, but also just the entire building as a whole, taking out anything that was inside of it. So as he turns around, he's like, wait a minute, my mom was in there. And I don't know, I've read this like 3 times. I have no idea how he thinks his mom was in there. Like, I don't know how he got that. But regardless, he looks inside the chopper and there's Director Zither. And Zither's like, hey, your mom's fine. I can take you to her. I just want you to listen to me. I'd like to be your friend. My name is Zither. And then we cut away. We go over to Jason, who's got Tanya in his arms running into the hospital, just barely not on fire anymore. And he's like, oh, she needs help. And apparently they start doing like some pre-op stuff, and there's bone fragments and bullet fragments that are in her brain, so that's like too sensitive to operate around, so they just have to leave it for now. Jason goes in, he looks at the x-rays, and then he uses his powers to transmute the bone and bullet fragments into oxygen, which oxygen in the brain doesn't sound good either, but apparently it's fine. And he kisses Tanya and walks out of the room. We cut back real quick to Pozar, who's now talking to some sort of Russian official, who's like, hey, look, we know this isn't your fault, but the Firestorm protocols were stolen under your watch, and now they're in the hands of two teenagers in America. So get them back, and maybe then the Russian government will look fondly upon you again, Pozar. So that's the next villain, I guess. So then we see that Tanya's apparently, she's doing better, she's stable, she's not out of the woods yet, but Jason needs to go home and get some rest. So he walks out the door and immediately is met by the just lights and all these men with guns. And Zither's there again. He's like, hey, Jason, I'm Director Zither, and I would like to be your friend. Also, I'd like to offer you a job. And Ronnie comes flying in, and he's like, Jason, do it. This place is awesome. And that's where we leave off of whatever just happened there. It's good. It's a fine issue. I feel like, I just glanced in the last issue of all the things that we left at the cliffhanger, and I feel like we didn't do anything to deal with that, and we're just now doing the Pozar thing. So I feel like we just dropped half the storylines for no reason, and I'm not entirely sure why. But regardless, this was fine. It was okay if you just look at it as its own standalone thing. We got the Pozar set up. It feels like a very streamlined plot now, where it's just all right, we got the Russian guys, we got Firestorm in the middle, and then we got Zither over here. And then that's just its thing. That's fine. I'm good with that. We don't need all these B teams. So as long as we stick with that, I'm good. Art-wise, it's fine. It's a bit heavy on the inks on a couple of these pages, but I don't hate it that much. This last page is really weird, though, in that they did the weird dot effect that you get in old comics. That was anywhere else in the comic. I don't know why they chose to do it there. Regardless, I'm giving this one a 6.5. It's fine. It's bordering on good, but it's still got some issues. So, yeah, 6.5 for Firestorm.